right, we're going to talk about sleep, hydration, and elimination. And so, like Lisa said, I'm Heidi Hackler, and I am a functional wellness coach and author of the Food, Mood, Gratitude Journal. My wellness journey started with my mom way back growing up. And my mom, as Lisa mentioned, was a super wellness advocate. She was super healthy when we were growing up, and we didn't really even have much sugar in our house at all. We did not give out candy at Halloween, much to our chagrin. So when I went off to college, of course, I just binged on all the junk food I could get that I never had growing up. So I ate just lots of crappy food and ended up getting sick and having all kinds of things going wrong with me. And my journey took about 20 years before I was diagnosed with celiac disease and several food allergies along the way. And that sort of prompted me to go back to school and study nutrition. I was a graphic designer for many years, but I studied nutrition, and now currently I am in functional medicine school as well, studying functional medicine, which if everybody, I can't see all of you guys. Let's see if I can, I don't have it so I can see you guys right now. Let me see if I can just change this for a second. Okay, there we go. I can see all of you. So does anybody know what functional medicine is? Can you raise your hand if you know what functional medicine is? Anybody heard of functional medicine? Okay, so we'll just go into that on this next screen. So today we're going to explore functional wellness concepts to help minimize Parkinson's symptoms, and we're going to talk about sleep, dehydration, and digestive issues and elimination. So functional wellness or functional medicine basically stems from the idea that we want to get to the true root of what is going on with any wellness concern. So with allopathic or conventional medicine, if you go to the doctor and you have something wrong with you, they are typically going to give you a pill to treat the symptom, but not necessarily try to get to the true root cause of why is this thing happening in the first place. And the body is very resilient and doesn't just kind of go haywire for no apparent reason. So like as an example of this, when I was 19 years old, I got an ovarian cyst and was at the doctor and trying to figure out what was going on. And they prescribed birth control pills, and they just said, well, just take the pill and then your cyst will go away and it's no big deal. Well, that's great, but that did not get to the root of why did a 19-year-old have an ovarian cyst to begin with, which was clearly an indication of hormones way out of balance. So, something like that, if it had been addressed at the time to rebalance hormones and things, could have prevented a lot of other issues down the road. But that's not typically the way doctors have been trained to look at things. They've been trained to just dole out a pill for every ill. And so my aim with my functional medicine studies and my functional wellness coaching is to really help people get at the root of what's happening and peel back the layers of the onion and try to resolve issues instead of just being on so many medications for everything that goes sideways. And in functional wellness, we really look at bio-individuality. So who is this person that has these collection of symptoms rather than what is the name of this disease? Because in reality, any disease is just a group of symptoms lumped together, given a name, but every different person who has Parkinson's may have a completely different root cause of what led them to that disease diagnosis to begin with. And then we'll also talk about later on oxidative stress. And I just wanted to put these terms down here to make sure people were familiar, but oxidative stress is an imbalance in the body between free radicals and antioxidants, which is basically like your body rusting on the inside. In the same way that your car would rust, the inside of our bodies can actually have oxidative damage and rust, so to speak. And so we want to look for those type of things and rebalance that so that it doesn't cause tissue damage. So let's jump in. And from a functional wellness, functional medicine perspective, there are basically 9 underlying drivers of Parkinson's. I'm only going to cover the first 3 today: circadian or sleep disruption, gut dysfunction and gut-brain axis, and dehydration. So these other 4 through 9, If there's time at the very end, I may cover a couple of other ones, but there's a lot of information in all of those. And so today we only have time for the first three, but we'll go ahead and see how far we get on those. And then maybe if Lisa decides to have me back, we can cover some of the other ones in another time. So why do we need to take our health back into our own hands? Well, today in the US in particular, we really have a disease care system, not a healthcare system. We don't have a lot of prevention happening. We have a lot of pills being doled out, and it's more reactionary to react to the symptom that's happening instead of preventing it or getting at the root cause and maybe reversing it. So we have the science and technology to prevent and slow or reverse chronic illness, including Parkinson's, and to feel better. So let's do it. So with, kicking insomnia and other sleep issues. Sleep is so important for so many reasons, as I'm sure many of you are aware. And you guys, I'm not trying to teach you something you don't know here. You probably all are very aware of these, but the brain does have a lot of benefits, and the body as a whole has a lot of benefits while we're sleeping. So the body really only repairs and regenerates itself while we're asleep. While we're awake during the day, it's busy doing other things and helping us move and function and things like that. And so it's not until we're asleep at night that it really goes after repairing and restoring cells and washing. The brain actually gets washed with spinal fluid, kind of like being in a car wash. It actually gets like a spinal fluid wash through the whole brain that helps remove dead cells and toxins at night. And the interesting thing is that research has shown the majority of the repair and regeneration happens between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. It's happening the whole time you're asleep, but really that's the major powerhouse time when you want to make sure you're asleep, between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And so if you're not sleeping during those hours, it's important to figure out why that is and try to ensure that you can be asleep during those hours for the best repair and regeneration. So anybody have difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, waking up in the middle of the night? You can raise your hand if you have any of these things happening. Anybody? Yeah, okay, I see a couple of you raising hands. I know I've for sure had all of these things happen before. So luckily I have been able to do a lot of things to help mediate all that, and I'm now sleeping much better. But you're not alone if you have sleep issues. 80% of Americans don't get the recommended 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. That's huge. That's only 20% of people are actually getting the recommended amount of sleep. So, and lack of sleep, as we know, can adversely impact our health in a variety of ways. But one of the things that people may not be aware of is insomnia can have many root causes, including food sensitivities. So food sensitivities is not something that's usually thought of by mainstream allopathic medicine. For a long time, they thought that was no such thing, but now there is a lot of science to actually back up that food sensitivities is a thing. It's different than a food allergy. It's not an anaphylactic shock, but the food sensitivity, it is an autoimmune response that can lead to a whole host of different symptoms, including insomnia, including gut issues, and things like that. So we'll talk more about food sensitivities down the road. And then interestingly, if you are taking sleeping pills, you really want to try to do what you can to get off of those, because that has been shown to increase cancer risk by 35% and leads to overall higher mortality rates. So sleeping pills are no bueno, and there are a lot of natural things we can do to hopefully help wean you off of sleeping pills if you are taking them. So 4 top things stand in the way of sleep for most people, and this is Parkinson's notwithstanding, because I realize with Parkinson's there are some other issues that get in the way of sleep as well. But if we can at least mediate these 4, then potentially the other issues may not be as bad. So blue lights, anybody use their phones and devices before they go to bed at night, or TVs? Blue lights are terrible for sleep. And the reason being is that melatonin, does everybody know what melatonin is? Anybody? Melatonin is a hormone that's our sleep hormone that helps us sleep, and it's produced in the pineal gland, which is right behind your third eye. So melatonin is produced by the pineal gland, but when your eyes take in blue lights from your devices, from your computers, TVs, phones, whatever it may be, that signals the pineal gland that it does not need to make melatonin because it's daytime. Even if it's at night, it will signal the pineal gland, it's daytime, you don't need to make melatonin. And so blue light devices are a huge thing that stand in the way of people sleeping well at night. And I really, really recommend. Yeah, Lisa?
Quick question.
Uh-huh.
Blue blocker glasses help at all?
Do blue blocker glasses work
That's
at all?
a great question. I actually don't know the answer to that. I'm sure there's a ton of marketing around that says they help, but I honestly don't know if there have been studies done that show they really do help or not. That's a great question. And I can try to do some research on that and get back to Lisa to share with you, because I don't know. But the biggest thing I recommend, because there's more behind just the blue light, it's also the scrolling and the dopamine hits of what you're looking at. And if it's news, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that are involved with that. So I really recommend people get 100% off their devices 1 to 2 hours before bed at night. But I will find out on that question and get back to you. Great question. Thanks. So another one is caffeine, and many people don't realize that caffeine stays in your body for a very long time. The half-life of caffeine is 6 hours, and it takes up to 10 to 12 hours to fully get out of your body. So if you're having any caffeine after 12 noon, whether that's coffee, black tea, green tea, chocolate, or a soda that has caffeine in it, that is definitely going to impact your sleep in the evening. So I like to have my 2 squares of dark chocolate a day, but I eat them after breakfast to make sure they don't impact my sleep. And caffeine can be a really big one for people. So if you are taking in caffeine in any food or beverage, you want to really be mindful of that and try to not have any past 12 noon, because that can definitely affect your sleep. Alcohol is another one. I don't know how many of you drink alcohol, but that disrupts the GABA glutamate balance. GABA and glutamate are both neurotransmitters in your brain. And when they become out of balance, that in turn disrupts dopamine, which is a significant factor in Parkinson's as well. So for the most part, I would really recommend against alcohol, except for, maybe a special occasion here and there. But if you're having a glass of wine every night, sleep as well. A lot of people think, oh, wine makes me sleepy, I'll go right to sleep. And it does initially make you sleepy, but then it disrupts your sleep throughout the whole night. So, and the other thing about alcohol is that it's really hard on the liver to process. And so your body is always going to prioritize detoxifying liver out of the body before it does anything else. So anytime you have any alcohol, your body's going to focus on getting rid of the alcohol first before it's going to work on getting rid of other toxins in your body. So just another reason to be mindful of alcohol consumption. And then stress is another big one. So 2 other hormones we want to talk about when it comes to sleep, or one other one. We talked about melatonin, but cortisol is your stress hormone. And cortisol and melatonin are, you can think of them actually as like a teeter-totter that basically go like this. So when cortisol is up, melatonin is down. Can you guys see my hands okay? I'm not sure if you can see me up there, but if melatonin is up, cortisol is down. So what happens is throughout the day, your cortisol will be high in the morning to help you wake up, and your melatonin will be low. During the day, your melatonin will start to rise and your cortisol will lower to help you sleep. And so when you fall asleep, your melatonin is going to be really high and your cortisol is going to be really low. And then throughout the night, the melatonin will come back down again and your cortisol will come up. Well, any stress decreases your melatonin production in the same way that blue lights can. So I really recommend ditching watching any news at night. I recommend ditching the news altogether anyway. It's much better for your health to ditch the news. But in particular, television news is very, very, very stressful to the body. This is because you see visually things that your mind would never conjure up on its own. So if you're just reading the newspaper or listening to the radio and getting your news that way, your mind may picture these horrific things the news is talking about, but you're not going to actually be seeing those images. And the images that you see on TV are 10 times more graphic than most likely what your brain would be conjuring up. And so that's very stressful to the body. So I really recommend with anybody having issues with sleep that you just want to avoid the news at night if at all possible. So some other things that can get in the way of sleep is eating too close to bedtime. You want to have at least 3 hours of digestion time between the end of your dinner and before you go to bed. So if you're trying to be in bed asleep by 10 p.m., you want to be 100% done eating anything by 7 p.m. And I also really recommend to my clients that they cut way back on drinking anything at night, even water, tea, whatever. I say by 6 or 7 p.m., you want to be done drinking. Mark, did you have a question? Did you raise your hand? No? Okay. Thought you raised your hand. If anybody has a question, feel free, Lisa, you can stop me along the way. If you limit your drinking at night, other than to whatever water you need to take your medications, but if you really taper back anything from water and tea and such at night, like by 7 p.m., then that can also help you not have to get up and go pee in the middle of the night. So that can help with your sleep as well. Again, we talked about undiagnosed food sensitivities and sleep apnea. So with the gal who has sleep apnea, hopefully you are using a CPAP machine for your sleep apnea. Is that the case? Yes.
She's been trying for years,
Just
not working.
didn't work. And one of the reasons is because I have to get up so often to go to the bathroom. And
Okay.
breather, so I have to have the mask that covers your mouth.
So for you in particular, I would definitely recommend reading this book, Breath by James Nestor. Have you read that book before?
No.
Okay. Highly recommend this book. It may be a game changer for you. It's all about mouth breathing and how we can overcome mouth breathing. And so he talks about mouth taping. Has anybody heard of mouth taping?
Oh.
So mouth taping is where you actually tape your mouth shut at night.
Oh
And I have been doing that myself for about 2.5 years, and it is a total game changer on my sleep. And the nights when I get lazy and don't mouth tape, I don't sleep nearly as well. And I was really afraid to try it at first. I thought, oh my God, how am I going to breathe at night? Whatever. But even if you're stuffed up, it doesn't matter. Your body will compensate. Your body will be like, well, my mouth is taped shut. I have to breathe out of my nose, and your sinuses will just open up. It's amazing. But this book is one of the most remarkable books I've read in a long time. And I think my mom, Jean, has read it as well. So anyway, definitely check that out. Even though it's about breathing, it has a lot to do with sleep and sleep apnea and mouth breathing and how all of that relates to our overall health. So the other thing is we want to keep our bedrooms around 68 degrees at night. If it's too warm, we don't sleep well. And we want our bedrooms very dark. If you can get dark drapes and block out all the light, the better. And really recommend removing any type of device that has an LED light in the bedroom or taping over that light. If you have a little blue light or a little green light or a little red light on anything, get rid of your digital clocks. All of that stuff disrupts your sleep, and you don't realize it. That light actually gets through your eyelids and disrupts your sleep. You want no lights in your room at night as much as possible. And then, does anybody here have pets? Anybody have pets? Okay. So if there's a couple people with pets, if you let your pet sleep with you, that can also disrupt your sleep. And I have 2 cats and they like to sleep with us, but I have to kick them out of the bedroom at night because I won't sleep well if they're sleeping with me. So keep the pets out of the bedroom at night and you may sleep a lot better as well. And then we also have the traditional Chinese medicine body clock. This is used in acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. This dates back about 8,000 years, although there is some new scientific research that actually kind of backs this up. So the body, it appears that the body goes after targeting different areas of repair at different times of night, and it's kind of a consistent thing. So if you're constantly waking up at the same time in the middle of the night, you might want to check out the body clock to see, if you're always waking up at 2 a.m., maybe you have some liver congestion going on or something like that. So I have found this working with my clients, this Chinese body clock can be very accurate with what is going on with them with regards to sleep issues and when they are waking up. And I will give Lisa this whole presentation afterwards, or I think she has it already, but she can pass this on to everybody. So you guys don't need to write all this stuff down. You'll have all of this as a reference to go back to. And so what is causing your particular sleep disturbance? You can look over these different areas and see what thing might be happening for you. And we know, of course, that Parkinson's has its own specific sleep disturbances, whether this is changes to certain brain chemicals or from medications that may have side effects that disrupt sleep. So since those things you may not be able to change anything about, you can definitely change these other things that we have talked about, and hopefully all of those changes combined, or some of them, can help you to sleep better. And then a few natural remedies to talk about. Kiwis and tart cherry juice have both been shown to have phytochemicals, plant chemicals that help induce sleep. So you can drink a shot of tart cherry juice or eat a kiwi or two before bed. There are lots of different herbal teas that can help. And then as far as who was talking about vitamins and supplements, I actually supplement with these 3 supplements right here, the magnesium, L-threonate, taurine, and glycine, sorry. Magmind up on the top right here by Jarrow is what I take. It's a magnesium I take every night before bed, and magnesium has a ton of benefits in the body. One of the things it helps with is sleep. Another thing it helps with is constipation. It helps with relaxing your muscles. It helps with keeping your heartbeat regular. About 300 different biochemical processes that it helps with in the body. So the taurine and the glycine are both amino acids that have been shown to help promote sleep as well. And are any of you vegetarian or vegan? Anybody eat a lot of vegetables? Okay, so if anybody doesn't eat any animal protein, they are probably low in taurine and glycine, because those are primarily found in animal products as well. So I supplement with all 3 of those at night: the magnesium threonate, the taurine, and the glycine every night. And as far as supplementing with melatonin, I just wanted to give a quick note on that as well. Do any of you supplement with melatonin? Has anybody tried taking that for sleep? No, okay. That can help as well. The thing you want to be very mindful of with supplementing with melatonin is that our body makes our hormones in very small, minute amounts. So the amount of melatonin that the body makes is about 300 micrograms a night. Well, if you go look for supplements to buy melatonin, you're going to see supplements ranging from 5 or 10 milligrams up to 20 or 30 milligrams of melatonin, which is far, far, far more than the body would make on its own. I sometimes supplement with 1 milligram of melatonin, which is the smallest amount you can find available. And even that is 3 times what the body would normally be making. So if you are supplementing with melatonin, you want to make sure that it's only 1 milligram, no more than that. And just be aware that that will probably make you feel a bit groggy in the morning, and you may have a difficult time waking up in the morning because your body is having to process way more melatonin than it's used to. So in general, I don't recommend supplementing with melatonin unless it's sort of a last resort. Like, I would try all of these other things first. And if you're still not sleeping, then go for the melatonin, but just be mindful of how much you're taking. And then we want to set a regular bedtime routine every night. Going to bed at the same time every night really helps the body just to get in a routine and get to know that, okay, at 9:30 at night, we're winding down. This is what we're doing. And again, ditch the blue lights and the devices. For some of you, if you have a lot of anxiety and you have the monkey mind, where your mind is always chattering and ruminating about things, it may be helpful to journal before bed at night and just write everything down and get it out of your brain onto paper, and then you don't need to think about it anymore. Another thing I really recommend with my clients that have insomnia issues is a yoga nidra, which is a specific type of meditation, guided meditation for sleep. And there is a timer, or an app on the phone's Insight Timer, and it's free. You can download Insight Timer, and that has a lot of yoga nidra guided meditations on that. And if I ever have problems falling asleep, I may listen to one of those, and I can tell you honestly, I've never made it clear to the end of the meditation without being zonked out. And then breathing exercises can definitely help with sleep as well as just calming the whole central nervous system. One interesting thing back to when we were talking about the news at night, our bodies take in more bits of data in one single day than our hunter-gatherer ancestors took in their entire lifetime. So think about that, how much data we're taking in on a daily basis, and it's literally short-circuiting our nervous system. Our brains can't deal, we can't handle with all this information. So try to shut down as much information as you can, especially before bed. But when you do breathing exercises, that puts your body back into a sympathetic state of nervous system instead of the fight, flight, or freeze mode where stress will lead you to. You can be in a rest and digest mode. So let's just do a break here for a minute and let's try some breathing exercises. I'm going to lead you all in. We'll do the box breathing, which is the 4x4, or it's where you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4. So is everybody ready? Let's take a deep inhale for 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Let's repeat. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now you can go back to breathing regular. If you do box breathing periodically throughout the day, whenever you happen to think about it, and especially before you go to bed at night, it can significantly help your sleep. It can help your stress levels. And it's something you can do anywhere you are. If you're standing in line, if you're driving in the car, if you're wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you can always do box breathing and just help to calm your central nervous system. If you're doing the 4-7-8 breath, that's another great one as well. With that one, you want to not do it more than 6 times in a row, or you can potentially hyperventilate. But with the 4-4-4, you can keep doing that as many times as you want. So let's take a quick break and stretch and move and get something to drink. We just did some breathing. So anybody have any takeaways from exploring sleep issues and remedies?
Heidi, can we bring you back? Can you stop sharing just a minute so we see
Sure.
you?
Absolutely. How's that?
Yeah, and then I'm gonna pin you so you're big picture.
Okay, awesome. Great. So, hi, Harold. Welcome. Nice to
Welcome.
see you.
Thank you.
So, anybody have any takeaways? Did anybody learn something new about sleep that they didn't know prior? Let's see. Jean says, box breathing makes me feel like I can't breathe. So that makes me anxious. Okay, interesting. So maybe try to do it slower. Maybe try doing it just for, a count of 1 or 2 instead of for 4, if that seems too much for you. And see if you can try that. And if that makes you feel too anxious, then that's not the right tool for you.
I had a question about taping your mouth. What kind of tape do you use?
That's a great question. There's a lot of tape out there. You can use different things. I use one I got on Amazon, and I will send Lisa a link to which one it is. The one that I use is like an X that goes over there. So really the corners of my mouth can still open a little bit. When you read the book Breath, he recommends that you just start with a really small piece of tape right in front. So I actually started like with Scotch tape, and honestly, I started doing it in the daytime because I was too afraid to mouth tape at night. I was like, I am not going to be able to breathe. So while I was working at my desk in the day, I would just put a little piece of tape right there, and it was really remarkable that I just was breathing through my nose and not through my mouth.
And Scotch tape was good enough to hold it.
It was, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the tape. Kind of need to, if you have like chapstick on or something, it might not stick. But there are specific mouth taping tapes that you can get that work better. So now I use a mouth taping tape. And the one I use is like think it has 100 pieces. It's a little X shape that you just peel off, and has 100 pieces in it. So that would last you for 3 months. And I think it's about $8 a box or something. So it's very inexpensive.
At Amazon. I think.
Amazon.
She's gonna
Yeah,
send it.
Amazon. I'll send you the link to the one I use. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions about sleep or takeaways? Anybody have an aha moment of something that might help you sleep that you're not doing?
I have another question about napping.
Sure. Napping is great. What?
What else feel like, and they say that you shouldn't nap because then you won't be tired enough at night to sleep. But
I disagree with that. I mean, I'm not going to go against what your doctor tells you, but I take a nap every day. I live in Mexico. Siestas are a big thing in Mexico. A greater part of the world outside of Northern Europe and the US and Canada takes a nap every day. So I really believe in naps. And I think that, again, as we talked about, your body can only repair itself when you're sleeping. So if you can take 2 or 3 naps throughout the day, you are only benefiting your brain and your body while you're sleeping.
is there
So
anything too long? Like if you sleep for an hour and a half? Or...
I generally nap for about 20 minutes. I will set an alarm for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Usually I set my alarm for 20 minutes because it might take me 5 minutes to fall asleep, and then I nap for about 20 minutes. For me personally, if I nap longer than that, I can wake up feeling a bit groggy. So I just like to do like a 20 or 30-minute nap. But I would say, especially if you're not sleeping well at night and you can sleep for an hour or 2 in the daytime, it doesn't really matter that you're not getting your sleep at night, as long as you are getting some sleep. I personally would disagree with not napping just so that you can sleep at night, because if I say, listen to your body, if you're tired and your body wants to nap, listen to it. Your body knows best. And here's the other thing I like to remind my clients. Humans are the only animal on the planet that do not go to sleep when they're tired. Think about that. Your cats and dogs nap all day long, right? So if you're tired, take a nap. Listen to your body.
What time do you take your nap?
For me, I take it after lunch around 1:30 or 2 o'clock, somewhere in there. About the time we started this talk. Like right now, I should be napping, trying to stay awake. So yeah, does that help?
Yes, greatly.
Did everybody take a drink of water? Who needs water?
Everybody take a drink. We're going to talk about hydration right now. So I'm going to take a drink. I am drinking water with hibiscus flower in it, like kind of like hibiscus tea, which is really refreshing. Okay, so should we start sharing and go ahead?
Sure. Did everybody move a little bit? Wiggle
Wiggle
around?
around in your seat, move your
Yeah.
arms,
Yeah.
shake your hands, get some energy into your body.
Yeah. Look around the room.
Yeah, say hi to your neighbor.
Yeah.
Great. Mark's taking a drink right now. I like that.
Beautiful.
Excellent. Okay. And Harold, we didn't get to meet you early on. Where are you located?
I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Oh, cool. Okay. Awesome. Welcome. And if you missed it, I am in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico on my sailboat.
Let's see the outside of the sailboat.
Oh, yeah. It's so bright outside. I have to kind of have things closed up or I would be totally glared out. We're in the middle of a marina, and the marina is in the middle of the city, surrounded by condos all the way around it. So if you think of Miami, Florida, where you see condominiums with boats right in front of it, that's kind of where it looks like, what it looks like where I am right now. But I'm going to be leaving in about 2 weeks to go sailing for a couple of months to our different areas in Mexico. So anyway, how about we go back to sharing my screen and let's move on to the next hydration hacks for your health. Okay, so are you dehydrated?
Yes.
Good. You all know that you're dehydrated. Okay, excellent. That's the first step in becoming undehydrated. So 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated. And one of the things that you might or might not be aware of is one of the very first symptoms of dehydration is clumsiness. Tripping, stumbling, falling, bumping into the wall or desk, dropping things can all be signs of dehydration. When you get dehydrated, one of the first things that happens is your brain cells actually starts to shrink up. Nobody wants to have shrunken brain cells, right? So you can think of your brain cells as like the kitchen sponge. When it gets dried out on your counter, you know how it gets all shrunken up, but then you add water on it and it expands again. Well, the same will happen to your brain cells. They will expand again. They don't stay shrunken up, but let's not get them shrunken up in the first place, right? Brain fog, forgetfulness, misplacing things, headaches, or feeling dizzy, especially when you live at altitude. I grew up in Wyoming with Lisa in Jackson Hole, and I was chronically dehydrated my whole life. I didn't know it then. In fact, in high school, I had such bad headaches all day long, every day. My mom gave me a big bottle of aspirin that I kept in my locker, and I just popped aspirin all day long, not realizing I was dehydrated. Now I know when I get a headache across the middle of my forehead, it's a clear sign of dehydration, and I try to never let that happen. But one of the other big reasons you really don't want to be dehydrated is that can also lead to constipation, and nobody wants that. So why is hydration important? Well, look at the body and look at how much of our organs and things are comprised of water. It's pretty amazing to take a look at. So your lungs, for example, are 83% water. When you get dehydrated, it makes it harder to breathe. And your brain is 75% water. So we need our brain working at 100% capacity, right? So one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that your body needs 6 minerals, which are known as electrolytes, to actually digest and absorb the water into your body. So those electrolytes or minerals are sodium, calcium, potassium, chloride, phosphate, and magnesium. And unfortunately, most bottled waters and filtered waters remove all of those minerals. And so if you're drinking bottled water or filtered water that has the minerals removed, your body is going to actually leach minerals from elsewhere, from your bones, from your muscles, from elsewhere in your body to have enough minerals to absorb that water. So that's one of the reasons that really a lot of people get dehydrated is if they're drinking bottled water, it doesn't have enough electrolytes, and that can actually cause you to become more dehydrated. So I'm going to stop sharing again for a second here. We're going to do the skin pinch test. So let's take your hand and you want to pinch this little flap of skin right between your thumb and forefinger. So pinch that skin. And if it stays peaked up at all, you are dehydrated. If it goes right back down, then you are not dehydrated. So anybody have, and you're not going to, you don't want to do it like between there. You want to do it right here on the outside. So pinch it up like that on the outside. Can everybody see that okay? Anybody dehydrated?
Obviously.
Yeah, okay. Let's fix that. Let's get our hydration back. So it's super important for our brain and for overall health. So a couple of other things about hydration is when you live at higher altitudes, you need to increase your hydration because living at a high altitude and or living in a hot climate both require more hydration. Also, your muscles are what really stores your water. And so as you get older, you have less muscle mass. And so you're able to store less water. So you need to drink more water as well as you age. And if you find yourself becoming thirsty, that is a sign that you are already dehydrated. So it's not like, oh, I'm thirsty, I should drink something. It's like, yeah, I'm thirsty, I am already dehydrated, I really need to drink something. So benefits of hydration. You can look over the list and see some of the causes of dehydration and see what applies to you. And then some of the benefits of hydration include lubricating your joints and helping with balance. Those are super important as we age, especially. And I think that some of the balance, again, stems from the brain. So when the brain gets dehydrated, it's going to be harder to balance your body. And then helps you breathe better, helps you maintain blood pressure and relieves blood clots or prevents blood clots and prevents constipation. So how much water do you need to drink? Well, you know, they always used to say drink 8 glasses a day, but that never really made sense to me because I thought if you're 6'6" and 300 pounds, or you're 5'1" and 100 pounds, why would you drink the same amount of water? That doesn't make sense. So scientists have now figured out actually how much water you need to drink, which you take your body weight in pounds and divide by 2, and that gives you the number of ounces of water a day. So for example, if you weigh 130 pounds, divide by 2, you get 65 ounces of water. Divide that by 8 for how many ounces in a cup, and you get 8.5 cups of water a day. So I really like to drink out of a mason jar, which has numbers down the side of it that lets me know how much I have drunk. I drink about 2.5 mason jars full of water a day, and I add electrolytes to my water, which we'll talk about in just a second. If you're prone to dropping things, then it might not be such a good idea to drink out of glass because that could break. But you want to drink out of stainless steel or ceramic. I know ceramic could break as well, so maybe stainless steel. You definitely do not want to drink out of plastic. I am here to preach to all of you, do not drink or eat out of anything plastic at all, as much as possible. Plastic leaches toxins into your food and water. Even if it says BPA free, that doesn't matter. There's 20 other chemicals in plastic that still leach into your body. BPA is just the toxin du jour, and the next time you watch the news, they're going to talk about some other toxin that's in plastic. So we really need to avoid plastic at all, as much as possible, in anything that you drink or eat out of. So electrolytes, back to the electrolytes and the importance of them, and back to Mark's little song about the coconut. Do you remember? You put the lime in the coconut and shake it all up. That song from 1971. So it turns out that coconut water is actually an electrolyte in and of itself. And if you add a little bit of whole fresh squeezed lime and a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt, you have the perfect nature's electrolyte drink. So coconut, lime, and sea salt is perfect. If you can't easily get coconut water, you can just use 12 to 16 ounces of filtered water. Dr. Zach Bush electrolyte drink is actually what I drink every day. It's just DYI filtered water, the juice of 1 whole lime, and a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. Now, I want to point out that sea salt and table salt are 2 entirely different animals. So if your doctor has told you to avoid salt or not eat salt or whatever, that he's talking about table salt, not sea salt. Table salt has been stripped of all the other minerals, whereas sea salt has all of these other minerals in it. And table salt has also been bleached. So I really recommend staying away from table salt, but you can use sea salt. I use Colima salt because it comes from here in Mexico, but you can use any type of sea salt that is available to you. And at first, when I started learning about putting sea salt in my water, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to drink salty water. But with a 1/4 teaspoon of salt in 12 to 16 ounces, you honestly don't taste the salt at all, but it is giving you a lot of very beneficial minerals that you need to absorb that water. And now when I don't put salt in my water, I don't like the taste of it. I'm like, oh, it doesn't taste right. It tastes like something's missing. So again, you'll get this slide presentation. You'll have the recipes here, and really recommend you not go for the electrolyte drinks that are like Gatorade or Electrolyte or any of the commercial brands. They are mostly sugar, and if they're sugar free, then they're probably containing artificial sugars. Both of them are highly inflammatory. So we're not really getting into diet too much here, but I will say that you definitely want to ditch any artificial sugars because those are not healthy for your brain at all. And if you're one of those people who doesn't care for the taste of water, I have a lot of my clients who tell me, oh, I hate the taste of water. I can't drink water. I'm like, well, try adding some berries or melon or lime or something to it, or some, berries and basil or berries and mint. It's a lot better when you add something to it if you don't like the taste of water. I personally love the taste of water, so I don't have a problem with that. But so any takeaways on hydration? I'm going to pause this stop share again for a second. and let's get some takeaways from hydration, and let's have another drink of water or whatever you're drinking.
Joan has a question.
Joan, go ahead.
What about the pink Himalayan salt?
Yeah, that's fine. The thing with pink Himalayan salt is I have learned recently it's not it's fine for you, but there's a couple of, I guess, what would you say, social issues with it. For one, it's not actually from the Himalayas. It's false advertising. It really comes from Pakistan, which is not in the Himalayas, but the company that started doing all that figured that, you know, we're dumb enough to not know our geography and we don't know the difference between Pakistan and the Himalayas. So it doesn't come from the Himalayas, for one. And for two, the companies that mine it use a lot of child labor, and that goes totally against my grain and way of thinking. So I have stopped using pink Himalayan salt because I don't want to support child labor. So there are other salts out there. A lot of sea salts have been shown to be contaminated with microplastics, which you don't want. So the Celtic gray salt is a good one. The Colima salt, like I mentioned, what I use here in Mexico, you can get that on Amazon as well. And I will send Lisa a link to that one. It's pretty inexpensive. I think you can buy 1.5 pounds on Amazon for like $7 or something. That'll last you a really long time. But if you have the pink Himalayan salt, it's not going to hurt you. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks.
Uh-huh.
What about using a humidifier?
Yeah, that's great. Humidifiers are fantastic. I don't honestly know any statistics about how much that helps with dehydration or not, but it definitely can't hurt. And it probably helps keep your mucous membranes, you know, in your nose and mouth and things like that more moist. So yeah, I'd say that was great.
Clean it frequently to avoid the mold.
Yeah,
Sorry, what was that?
just to clean it often so we can avoid the mold.
Yes, absolutely. And that's another thing to point out with the CPAP machine as well. If anybody is using a CPAP, you want to clean that out very regularly to make sure you avoid mold. Well, that's hard to say. Avoid mold growing in the CPAP machine as well. So yeah. Any more questions before we move on to the next section?
I have a question about the
Sure.
about feeling thirsty. That
Okay.
sort of comes from living with my mom in her later years, and I don't know about other people, but I've gotten less thirsty as I get older, and just notice that I have to remind, like I had to remind mom all the time. So I what do you think that's about? And I think we all realize we need to drink more water, but
yeah, that's a really good question. I actually don't know what that's about. I think that's definitely true. And maybe it just has to do with some of the, you know, neurons, synapses or
Right.
something starting to break down and not getting us
Mm.
that clue. The other thing too is that oftentimes when you feel hungry, one of the first signs of thirst is feeling hungry. And so oftentimes when you feel hungry and you want to go get a snack or something, drink some water first. Take, 2 or 3 big drinks of water first, and then wait about 20 minutes and see if you are still really, truly hungry, because you might actually just have been thirsty.
Good point.
So, okay, should we move on?
Sure. How are people doing?
Excellent.
I just had one question back to the sleep disorder thing.
Uh-huh.
I have terrible nightmares and talking in my sleep, and I've gone to various doctors. I guess it's a side effect of Parkinson's. It can be, but I just don't know. I just wish I could get rid of them.
Yeah, I bet. Have you tried working with a hypnotherapist at all?
No.
So hypnotherapists can be very beneficial to help with nightmares. Sometimes there is some trauma stuck in your body or stuck in your subconscious that may be causing those. It can also be a side effect from medications and things like that as well. But you could try working with a hypnotherapist. And then again, from a functional medicine standpoint, nightmares can be kind of an indication of, it's sort of like anxiety happening in your sleep. And so depletion of B vitamins are highly linked to anxiety. And so you may want to get your B vitamin levels tested, see if you happen to be low on B vitamins, and that may be beneficial as well.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good luck with that. Nightmares are no fun,
Mhm.
but maybe seek out a hypnotherapist and see if they can help with that.
How would I go about finding one? Just asking my doctor.
I can give Lisa a link for that as well to help you find that. Hang on one second. I'm just going to write down a couple notes here so I remember all the things I'm going to send Lisa.
And then
don't
the
forget
other thing I
that.
was going to say too is that my understanding is from the levodopa, carbidopa medication that many of you are on. Also, that's one of the side effects. Yeah.
Yeah,
Are hallucinations, bad dreams. It just doesn't sound that fun. Is it?
right.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so I'm sending Lisa the sea salt, the hypnotherapist. There was something else. What was the other one I was going to send you, Lisa? Do you remember? I should have written that first one down. Was
Something
before the
else
sea
that you
salt.
get that.
Oh, the mouth tape.
Yes, the mouth.
Okay. All right. Now I have a running list, so I'm gonna write down anything else. Okay, let's go back to sharing here and let's see. So next we're moving on to ditching gas, bloating, constipation, and diarrhea because those are no fun for anybody. Whoops. Oh my gosh, my mouse kind of freaked out there. Sorry. So what is behind your digestion issues? Well, people can have all sorts of different digestion issues, from heartburn and acid reflux to gas, bloating, constipation. And we'll talk about some of these things in a minute. But I wanted to bring up a really interesting point. At least I think it's really interesting. Hopefully you will as well. Prior to about 5 or so years ago, scientists always thought that with the vagus nerve, which runs between the gut and the brain. Have you guys all heard of the vagus nerve? Does everybody know what that is? It's a main nerve that goes between the gut and the brain. And scientists always thought that the communication was one way from the brain to the gut, the brain telling the gut everything that was happening. But they have actually realized just in the past 5 or so years that that is not true at all. In fact, it's about 90% information going from the, let's see, somebody's got some background noise going on there.
It's the train.
It's a train going by you guys. Okay. All right. You're used to it. That's good. I love the sound of trains. So it turns out that the communication in the vagus nerve is actually 90% information going from the gut to the brain and only 10% from the brain back to the gut. And what else they discovered is that the molecules of every bite of food you eat, every molecule in the food you eat is directly communicating through the gut to the brain, sending messages. So the molecules in the food you eat are actually little messengers sending information. And they're either saying, Houston, we've got a problem. This is an artificial food. This is an artificial flavoring or a coloring or some synthetic preservative. We don't know what this is. We've got an interloper. We've got to remedy what this artificial thing is. Or if it's a real healthy food, if it's a fruit, vegetable, nut, seed, animal protein that hasn't been adulterated by processing, then the body says, this is awesome. This is great. We have real nutrients coming in. We've got good substrate, good ingredients to build new healthy cells. So literally, you need to think about what you're eating from that standpoint. And anytime you eat anything that's processed or artificial in any way, your brain knows immediately that that's a toxin and that's a poison, and it's going to react that way. So that's pretty wild and fascinating to me, huh? What do you guys think? Pretty crazy? So a few fun digestion factoids. You're not alone. 30% of Americans suffer from heartburn or acid reflux at least once a week. 72% of Americans suffer from gas or bloating. And again, gas, bloating, diarrhea, or constipation can all frequently be caused by an undiagnosed food sensitivity. So it's really important to work with someone, whether that's your regular primary care doctor or, if they are into testing for food sensitivities, and if not, maybe find a functional wellness practitioner or somebody who can help you to get to the root of any food sensitivities that you might have. Because if you can eliminate those foods, That may help you with your sleep. That may help you with your constipation. There's, a whole different thing, a lot of things that can be benefited from that. And then this other statistic here is 50% of people over age 50. Anybody in the room over age 50? Okay, at least half of you don't have enough stomach acid. Anybody in the room over age 80? Do we have anyone here over age 80? Okay, not quite. Well, I know my mom is over age 80. So 80% of people over age 80 don't have enough stomach acid to digest and absorb nutrients from their diet. Whoops, sorry, my mouse is freaking out again. So I am here to bust this myth. Has anybody been told they have too much stomach acid by their doctor? Anyone? Raise your hand if you've been told you had too much stomach acid. No? Okay, that's good. Too much stomach acid is very rare. Only 3 in a million people actually have too much stomach acid. Unfortunately, many doctors don't know this, and most of the time people come to them with heartburn or acid reflux. They're going to be told they have too much stomach acid, and they're going to be given an antacid or something to decrease their stomach acid, which is really no bueno, because you need that stomach acid to digest and absorb your nutrients. So the things that help decrease your stomach acid and why you may not have enough: stress diminishes our stomach acid by 90%. That's really huge. So if you're stressed, if you have a stressful life situation or something going on, I really recommend to my clients that they try to not eat when they're stressed. A lot of people have a stress eating habit where they're stressed out and they will start eating because they're stressed. But that's really not a good idea, because what happens is when you don't have enough stomach acid, then that food just sits in your stomach, not digesting, and it will start to ferment. Anybody know what happens to food when it ferments? Yeah, it creates gas and bloating. So you want all of the food in your stomach to digest. You don't want it sitting there not digesting. Other things that lead to not enough stomach acid is not chewing your food thoroughly enough. So if you take a couple bites and wolf it down, you really want to chew your food until it's the consistency of baby food. You want to have it be almost liquid before you swallow it. You might be chewing it 20 or 30 times, but that's going to benefit your digestion so much. It's going to really help alleviate gas and bloating and potentially constipation just by chewing your food. So that's a huge one. Magnesium deficiency also leads to low stomach acid. And again, the food sensitivities that we talked about. So I'm going to stop sharing again for a second. I want everybody to make a fist and hold up your fist. Everyone make a fist. Okay, look at your fist. That is the size of your stomach. Now look at that big plate of food in front of you. How's that going to fit inside your stomach? Not very well, unless you're really thoroughly chewing your food, right? So think of that whole plate of food. If you put it in a blender and blended it all up, it would be a lot smaller, right? So your stomach does expand as you're eating and digesting, but it's not going to expand 3 or 4 times as big. It might double in size. So maybe it'll be that big when you're eating and digesting, but you want to just really bear that in mind now that you know the size of your stomach. Every time you eat, make a fist, look at your stomach, and then remember that you're going to chew your food really thoroughly so that you benefit your digestion process, right?
I have a question about magnesium.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
So we take magnesium citrate,
Uh-huh.
and you mentioned a different kind of magnesium.
Yeah, so that's a great question. There are multiple different types of magnesium. Different types have different benefits. So the magnesium I mentioned earlier for sleep is L-threonine. Threonine. I will send Lisa a link to that one that I take and use for sleep. That one is very beneficial for calming the brain and the nervous system. I mean, all magnesium will do that to some extent, but different ones have different absorption rates and different things that they can target less well or more well. So in particular, L-threonine is very beneficial for sleep and calming the brain. And so when we talk about constipation coming up here in a minute, there's a different type of magnesium that may be more beneficial for constipation. And some of my clients, and myself included, take multiple different types of magnesium so that we're kind of targeting all the different areas that we need to. So for constipation in particular, you are going to want to maybe try magnesium oxide. Magnesium oxide is not absorbed by the body at all. So what that does is it helps with constipation because it helps move things out, but it's not going to be absorbed by the body. So your body won't be able to utilize that for anything else. Magnesium citrate is a really great form that kind of does a little bit of both. So that can help with constipation and it can help with sleep. So I think the one you're taking is great. If you need more help with sleep, I would try adding in some magnesium threonine. And if you need more help with constipation, I would try adding in some magnesium oxide. Does that help?
It does. Would you take it at a certain time with food, between food?
With food is great because like all minerals are basically rocks. And so you do need to have sufficient stomach acid to be able to break down and absorb them. The other thing I want to point out is you want to take as much as possible your supplements, especially minerals, in either a liquid form or in a capsule form. You do not want to take them in a tablet. Tablets are for one, they're hard to digest. They may not break down fully in your stomach first. But also tablets have a lot of fillers and binders to make that tablet material. And so you're not going to get the most amount of magnesium and you're probably not going to absorb it as well in a tablet form. So there are some good liquid forms. I'm going to send Lisa also the liquid magnesium that we take. And you can just put like 1/8 of a teaspoon in your water along with your salt and get your magnesium that way, and it will be much more absorbable that way. Does that help?
Yep, thank you.
Great. Okay, so let's see, what is causing your particular digestive issues? Well, we did talk about a lot of these quite a bit already, but I wanted to talk about SIBO for a bit. Have any of you been diagnosed with SIBO? Small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? Yes, did I hear a yes there? Okay, so I know SIBO can be a problem for people with Parkinson's. And so what happens in SIBO is that when you have undigested food, either because you don't have enough stomach acid or you haven't chewed your food well enough, and so you have a couple of chunks of hamburger in there that didn't get well digested, when undigested food particles start to move downstream from the stomach into the small intestine, you should not have undigested food in the small intestine, but it happens very frequently in people that don't chew enough and don't have good stomach acid. So you end up with bits of undigested food in your small intestine. And the majority of our gut bacteria lives in the large intestine, downstream of the small intestine. So that gut bacteria is meant to stay in the large intestine. But what can happen if you have undigested food that makes its way into the small intestine, that gut bacteria goes, hey, Fred, look at that. There's a whole buffet open up there. Let's go swim upstream. And so that bacteria starts making its way upstream to the small intestine to feed on this undigested food. That in turn is what causes SIBO, because that bacteria gets out of control, overgrows in the small intestine, and it really belongs in the large intestine. Does that make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. So SIBO can actually be turned around without antibiotics. Most doctors say, oh, if you have SIBO, you need antibiotics. But that's not necessarily true. If you clean up your gut microbiome, or if you clean up your stomach acid and get good, strong stomach acid and chew your food really well so that no undigested food is making its way downstream to the small intestine, then the bacteria hanging out from the large intestine that's swum upstream to the small intestine is going to say, wow, hey, Fred, the buffet closed. There's nothing here for us to eat anymore. And it's going to all migrate back to the large intestine again. So anyway, I hope that helps explain a little bit what's going on there and why it happens. And if you have SIBO and your doctor says you want it, that they want you on antibiotics, You really want to think carefully about that, because antibiotics wholesale wipe out good and bad bacteria. They don't differentiate. So you're going to lose as many good bacteria as you lose bad bacteria with antibiotics. So you want to be careful about that when it comes to your gut. And then, okay, moving on to constipation and other stool issues. So everybody poops, but nobody likes to talk about it. Well, I love to talk about poop because it's one of the best ways to tell how your health is doing. And if any of you have pets, I'm sure you look at your cat's or dog's poop, and if it doesn't look right, you probably take them to the vet, right? Well, get in the habit of licking your own, because it can tell you a huge story about your own health. So on the Bristol stool chart, this is kind of the gold standard of what your stool should look like. So type 1 and type 2 are considered constipation. And if you have type 1 or type 2, you want to really try to mediate those. Also, if you have less than 1 bowel movement a day, that is also considered constipation. So you want to make sure that you're going at least 2 or 3 times a day, if at all possible, and you want them to be type 3 or type 4, which is really the most healthiest stool you can have. So root causes of constipation can be from dehydration, can be lack of magnesium, lack of exercise, lack of fiber in your diet, and can be from medications as well that can lead to that. So if your medication is causing constipation, you want to double down on your fiber, on your exercise, on your magnesium, and on your hydration to try to combat that. And then loose stools can be as problematic as constipation, just because you're not going to be getting the nutrients out of what you're eating. That's loose stools are basically indicating that your stool is passing through you too quickly. But back to the constipation again for a second. The main concern we have about constipation, aside from it's not comfortable, is the reabsorption of toxins back into your body. So the toxins your body is trying to eliminate are all nice and packed up in that stool and sent on their way downstream to be eliminated. But when that gets stuck in your large intestine and hangs out there for a day or 2 or 5, then you are going to reabsorb those toxins back into your body, which is no bueno. Nobody wants to reabsorb toxins that are trying to get rid of. So really important to try to keep that stool moving. And then also, if you have greasy or clay colored stools, or you notice any grease or fat floating on the water in the toilet bowl, that is indicative of maldigestion of fats. This can be caused by low stomach acid, by poor bile flow, congested liver or gallbladder, or possibly not enough fiber as well. And so to maintain good daily hydration is really important to relieving constipation. Again, eating lots of fruits and veggies for fiber. And in particular for Parkinson's, you want to make sure you eat as much organic produce as possible. This is because in Parkinson's in particular, it happens that the brain and the body absorbs a lot of toxins from pesticides and herbicides. Glyphosate, things like that, are found in really high quantities in people with Parkinson's. And so you want to make sure that that stuff is not getting into your body, for one, and you eating organic as much as possible can help with that. Again, we talked about magnesium. There are herbal remedies for constipation. I will say, if anybody uses senna tea for constipation, please use that very sparingly. Don't use that daily. Don't use that for weeks on end. It is kind of harmful to the intestines over time. So it's okay if you're just constipated once or twice and you use it on occasion. But if you have chronic constipation, you don't want to be using senna tea to help relieve that. And then the other big thing that many people aren't aware of is try to not snack between meals. I know that might be difficult for some of you because you may need to have food that you take with, or supplement, medications that you take with foods or whatever, but try to not snack between meals, because we have something called the migrating motor complex. Has anybody heard of that? Migrating motor complex? Oh my gosh, my cats are going crazy. Sorry. They about knocked over my desk. So the migrating motor complex is a process that happens, excuse me, in the intestines about maybe every 4 or 5 hours. And it's actually this like wave action that comes from the esophagus all the way down to the large intestine. And it's a cleansing mechanism to help cleanse the whole intestinal tract. What happens is if you have any food in your stomach, the migrating motor complex will not trigger to start. And so for people who snack all day long or, have food in their stomach every 2 or 3 hours, that migrating motor complex is never getting a chance to happen. And that's a really important factor in preventing constipation. So you want to try to have at least 4 hours between food in your stomach so that that process can happen. And then also a squatty potty can be super helpful to just be more ergonomic when you sit on the toilet as well. So I think we're kind of running short on time here, but just some key takeaways that I put down, and you can have this to look through again. And then one more thing I wanted to mention really quickly, of those 9 functional medicine aspects to Parkinson's that we talked about up front, we just addressed 3 of them today. But 3 other ones I wanted to just touch on briefly because I think they may be very beneficial to you if you're not already aware of these. And again, this comes from a functional medicine perspective, and allopathic doctors may not agree with this. They may not even know about some of these things because most of them do not have very much nutrition in medical school at all. But there has been a direct correlation between Parkinson's and celiac disease. And so the PARK7 protein, which is found in the brains of Parkinson's patients, is also found in the brains of celiac people. And so there is now some really recent research thinking that Parkinson's may be impacted by gluten as well as celiac. So it may be beneficial for you to either get tested for celiac or just to go on a gluten-free diet. I would definitely recommend talking with your healthcare provider about that. Personally, I would say you don't need to get tested. You can just go gluten-free and see if that starts helping alleviate some of your symptoms. The tests can be expensive and you can, cut gluten entirely out. It may take 6 to 8 weeks of no gluten at all to see differences, but some people have reported significant improvements in their symptoms by cutting gluten out of their diet. And then an overload of iron is very common in the Parkinson's brain. And so again, most allopathic doctors are not doing a full iron panel. They may test your serum iron or they may test your iron saturation, but you need to have the full complete iron panel to get the whole picture of what's happening with iron in the body. How much do you have? Do you have too much? Do you have enough? Where is it being utilized? So you really want to work with a functional medicine practitioner who can test the full iron panel and really know what they're looking at when it comes to iron. And if you have iron overload in your brain, again, there are a lot of ways through dietary and lifestyle things that you can do to remediate that and get rid of some of the iron in your brain. And then the last one is environmental toxin overload. And we touched on this briefly, but you can get tested for heavy metals. Maybe if you have silver amalgams in your mouth, you may still be getting mercury from those, from plastics, from herbicides and pesticides, and really doing a functional medicine test for environmental toxins and then working with somebody to do an environmental detox has also significantly been shown to help in Parkinson's symptoms as well. And so this comes from Dr. Chris Kresser, who is a functional medicine acupuncturist. He's got a great podcast. And so these are his tips to reduce risk and improve Parkinson's symptoms. And he has worked with a lot of Parkinson's patients and clients in the past. And so this list of 12 things that he has helped them to do, and he has found with his patients and clients a significant improvement in symptoms as well. So there are some things out there from a functional medicine standpoint that may help to alleviate some of your symptoms, and it's possible that your allopathic doctor may or may not be aware of these things. So something for you to dig into a little bit deeper on your own if you are interested in learning more about them. And then as a functional wellness coach, I would be absolutely happy to talk with any of you. And I offer a free 30-minute call to just see answer any questions, and if it's a good fit to work with somebody like me to help you get more at the root of some of these things that we talked about today. So you can visit my website, Happy Well Life. And again, you'll get this presentation, or Lisa can send you this info. If you visit my website and sign up for my newsletter, you can download my 10 functional wellness tips to help you feel fantastic again. And I send my newsletter out about once or twice a month with wellness tips in that. And then my book is available on Amazon and elsewhere. But I would be happy to talk with any of you if I could be of any help. So there you have it. I'm going to stop sharing and open up the floor for any other questions, comments, anything like that.
Thank you.